Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Joe and Joe Weather Show with Joe Rayo and Joe Chaffee. And the Joe and Joe Weather Show brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware. Okay, I guess we wanted to hear that twice. Brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware. They are going to be opening tomorrow. They will be open from up until noontime, and then they're going to open early, 5 a.m. till noontime, and then back open Friday morning at 3 a.m. 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, 631-756-1125. The phone number, the website, omnitruevalue.com. They still have plenty of rock salt available. Rock salt's getting very hard to find these days, but they have plenty in supply, so get your crew over there and your trucks there. And also brought to you by Holiday Lighting by Giannini at 162 Ocean Avenue in Lindenhurst. You can plan ahead for the next holiday season. Your complete holiday lighting specialists, and also if you want to make holiday lighting a part-time career, give them a call, 631-957-5106. Holiday Lighting by Giannini in Lindenhurst. Okay, so here we are on a night of just absolute confusion. Uh, if it wasn't for the weather service, my inbox wouldn't have been flooded with so many questions tonight, Joe. So I think we need to explain. Everybody that is asking, and I asked it as soon as I saw it. Why did they go with a winter weather advisory for northeastern New Jersey, southern Connecticut, Long Island, and the Hudson Valley lower? Um, and not a winter storm warning when they're carrying the same snow accumulation. Actually, their ranges they're carrying is 5 to 9 inches. And the reason is that the criteria is 6 inches in 24 hours. And since this is going to, looks like now this is going to be a two-part event, they opted to do this. I don't know. I think that's, it just creates confusion. It really does.
They were debating as to when they were going to rid the terminology of winter weather advisories. They spent the entire summer asking people, getting votes on it, and whatever else. And here we are in the middle part of February 2021. We still are stuck with it. And it is now even more confusing in many ways than it was before the question even came up.
Well, Mount Holly's got winter storm warnings up for all the counties that it's responsible for, which is pretty much 7/8 of New Jersey. And some of those counties have winter storm warnings for amounts that are lower than what Upton is going for. And I understand the criteria thing. It's a federal government. They got to check the boxes, and if all the boxes aren't in the column aren't checked, then they can't do what they have to go to the next thing. But it really does create confusion in a case like this because I'm seeing this as one event. So look, it's not my job. It's not my call. I'm just explaining it. So that's the reason why.
Well, we have, as you met, I don't even know if you would call it a two-part. It's a continuous, to me, a continuous event, but with one big surge in the midday and afternoon hours tomorrow. I've been telling people that between 7 o'clock tomorrow morning and 7 o'clock tomorrow evening, generally speaking, I'm thinking 2 to 3 or 2 to 4 inches of snow. And then from 7 o'clock tomorrow evening until 7 o'clock on Friday evening, maybe another 2 or 3 or 2 or 4 inches. The only difference is, of course, is that we're going to see basically the same amount over a much longer time frame, 24 hours, as opposed to the first 2 to 3 or 2 to 4, which comes in only 12 hours.
Right, and well, you can yeah. It's turning out to be two waves. You and we had discussed the fact that the trough was hanging so far back to the west. You had the system coming up now is running up way ahead. It's going crashing into the ridge. And then I noticed yesterday, I really noticed it last night on the Canadian model in particular, where the trough suddenly swings around and sharpens. There's a short wave that comes down and around with that, and a second low develops. And the NAM model was probably the last model to catch this idea. and I'm a little concerned with that in terms of what we're going to get out of the front end because all the models except for the NAM are not overly robust with that first surge for tomorrow. Those bands get into southern New Jersey and then they just kind of weaken as they move northward. Uh, and the last run of the NAM started to cut the precip down, so I'm wondering if it's catching on at the last minute. Maybe its hot hand isn't as hot and as it has been.
Well,
But we'll
the global models have been certainly more conservative. The GFS, the European, the Canadian GEM model, global model. Meanwhile, the NAM has been doing what it's been doing for much of this month,
right.
and that is it's been hitting it hard, hitting it fast, and it continues to be higher than the global models. Man, you got to start considering or wondering because it's so far from the global models in this
Yeah.
particular case. You got to wonder which model is finally going to win out. You have to give maybe some consideration to the NAM, but you also have to make some considerations for the global models.
Well, if half of
Trying to
the
push the trend has been to push this thing
a
a little
little
further to
south
the south
and a
in
little
at least half
colder.
time.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
a little colder. And yeah, I would feel much more comfortable if half the models were on the NAM side and half the models were doing other things. But it's kind of by itself here. And yet at the same time, we've already seen it, like as you said, we've already seen it happen where it's been correct on these warm advection type situations that we've had where it comes in with a solid punch, and the other models have been kind of lacking on showing that. And then I think back, I think it was the system from was it 2 Sundays ago where sort of at the last minute the NAM pulled back on the amounts a bit, but it wound up being correct from what it was originally forecasting anyhow. So I'm thinking, is it doing that again? And we're going to wind up with, are we seeing a mid-run hiccup where it cut the precip back, and then at 9 o'clock when it comes out, it's going to go back to being robust again, more robust? I don't know. You know what? It's now cast time. That's what it
Yeah.
is. We'll watch the radars. We'll see what's going on, and we'll go from there. So you got your forecast map ready to share? Like I have mine ready to go.
Oh, okay,
You,
sure.
you want to go first, or do I go first, or
No, I'm snow.
your contract
Uh,
says your map goes before mine? I don't know. I haven't I haven't read it lately.
all right, so boom, there it is.
Okay, so let me switch. I just cheated and put mine up really quick. Now I'll go back to yours. So there you go. There is your map. So, splain.
All right, I'll explain. Now, I think I explained just a few moments ago that it looks like we're going to get the initial thump of snow during the course of the day tomorrow, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. tomorrow. I'm expecting about half of this. So where you see the 4 to 6, expect that by this time tomorrow night, many of you will probably be looking at least a couple of 3 inches in the Hudson Valley, Connecticut, Long Island, even New York City. This 6 to 8, I've got this higher up. This is for the higher elevation, specifically of Orange County and especially northern and northwestern New Jersey, where you might actually find more like a 3 to 4 inches of accumulation. But then it doesn't end there. Notice the valid time it runs from 7 a.m. On this is supposed to be a 7. It has an ampersand there, but my finger hit the shift key. But 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. February 19th, 7 a.m. tomorrow morning to 7 p.m. on Friday evening. So from 7 p.m. tomorrow night to 7 p.m. on Friday night, we're going to pick up additional snowfall, additional couple of 3 inches in this zone, and maybe another 3 or 4 inches here to make the grand total. This will be the grand total by Friday evening or late Friday, 6 to 8 here, 4 to 6 here. Generally speaking, Joe, what I'm saying is that by later Friday, just about everybody who's watching right now should have about a half a foot of snow. And meanwhile, if you live in a higher terrain area west of the Hudson, in Orange County, maybe Rockland, or especially northern western New Jersey, you might have a bit more than that, 7 or 8 inches. And so if it comes in an inch or two higher than that, or an inch or two lower than that, I don't really think it really cares. I think the main thrust, the main push is going to come during the daylight hours tomorrow, and then we'll get whatever leftovers there are tomorrow night and on through much of the day on Friday.
Um, being that it is now being stretched over a long period, this long period of time, and you spread out 6 inches over almost 36 hours, at least it'll make the cleanup go a little faster. Uh, Being that if we wind up doing it where we get half on one side, half of the other. On the other hand, that's all predicated on the fact that the NAM doesn't verify, because if the NAM verifies, it could be all of
Oh
that
my
on the
goodness.
front side and
Oh
then
my goodness. Yeah.
another couple of inches on the back side. The other thing I would just point out that this appearance of this second wave with the upper trough swinging around, there's always the chance that more energy winds up going into the second wave, and the first one just kind of weakens as it comes up, where you wind up with not very much, less than half maybe on the first one, and then you get more robust snow late Thursday night into Friday afternoon. I think that's certainly a possibility. We'll see if models go. We see if the models see it the way I'm thinking. I'm looking at this now. I'll show you what I did. I also I went the same route with respect to um, uh, treating this as one entire event. So this is the total snowfall for Thursday and Friday. My original early call was for a band of 3 to 6. And so what I did was, Joe, I just basically I took the 3 and pushed it up a little bit further to the north and made that a 4. Okay, so I took it from just south of Boston. Bill Rogers, you're in the 2 to 4 camp. Okay, because I know you've been looking. And I go up to southern Vermont and the upper Hudson Valley. So excuse me. So you see where my 2 inch line runs just north of Albany and north of Binghamton. Excuse me. There's your 4 inch line down to about basically just north of 84 is where I got the 4 inch, and then I have a 6 inch line drawn from just east of Bridgeport, kind of hugging the Connecticut coast. So it's 4 or less here in eastern Connecticut and down in Rhode Island. So the 6 line runs across northern New Jersey, and I have a little that band that you have. I basically took where you have your band of 6 to 8, and I just uh, was it 5 to 8 or 6 to 8 you had?
6 to 8.
6 to 8. So I basically just took your 6 to 8 band and I moved it a little bit further to the south, trying to respect the model's idea that maybe everything is kind of nudging a bit further south. And that narrow band of 6. So inside there, it could be 6, it could be 6.1, it could be maybe 7 or 7.5, maybe even an odd 8. As you go west and south into south central PA, down into northern Virginia and northeastern West Virginia, and then of course I tail it off a bit as you get to South Jersey. I've got 4 or less. I wanted to give some of the snow lovers in Southeast Jersey a bit of a break this time around, so I didn't. I could have drawn in a 2 inch line, and I didn't do it. I just said, you know what, you get less than 4. So if you get flurries, that counts as a verification because technically it's less than 4. So I I was a little taken aback by the when the NAM starts cutting amounts. I got a little nervous, not seeing the globals producing a whole lot on the front end. Even the HRRR, there's no other model out there that's confirming what the NAM is doing. So I kind of wanted to scale it back a bit, and then I'm thinking that maybe the second half will be the models will start. The models have been coming up on that, so I'm going to think that will probably trend a little bit higher.
Well, the 12Z GFS, for example, kept the lion's share of moisture either just over or just south of the tri-state area for tomorrow. But all of a sudden, in the on the back end or the back side of this system for Friday, they have a new wave of moisture coming across the region, which could be just as much, if not maybe even a touch more than what it was what was being pumped out for tomorrow.
Yeah,
So
I have it up there on the screen for everybody. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Joe.
So, I mean, you may be right. We may be highlighting tomorrow as the day or during the daylight hours as the time when we'll see the lion's share of the snow, and then the rest is gets spread out. But who knows? We may see a sudden surge on the back end on Friday. Maybe even if things work out in a weird manner, maybe even more on Friday than what we'll see on Thursday.
Well, here's wave one on the GFS. Uh, with it's pretty much a stalled frontal boundary with a coastal front is what you got here. The coastal front is right like this. There's lower pressures down here in the Gulf of Mexico. This is shooting. The low. This low is trying to go up in this direction. There'll be a secondary that forms here, and it's a flat wave that goes out. But here's your first wave. This is tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. So you've got your first area of snow that comes up during the day, starts to move up to the northeast. But here you still have that first wave doesn't really develop. It's very flat. It just moves along. You got this area of moisture that comes up, assuming it holds together. That moves along. And then you got, this second low all of a sudden that appears. And that's because if you look back here where these thickness lines are, they're going to match up with, if I switch to the upper air, there's your upper trough. It's way to the west. So this first wave is not really catching the energy from that. It's more the second wave that catches the energy from it. And then you see it pop out here Friday morning, and suddenly, you got all this precip that's back up in Pennsylvania, upstate New York, overhead. You got this large area of freezing rain and sleet from central New Jersey on south. I don't know how much of that is really freezing rain and how much of that is going to wind up being snow. Not sure. And then that low actually starts to develop a bit as it moves on out to the northeast. So yeah, Joe, I think there's a chance that we could see a little bit less from the first and a little bit more from the second. At the end, it'll hopefully come all out in the wash. Because when you look at the snow amounts from all the models, they're all about the same, and they all have that in that sort of 6-7 inch range by the time this is all said and done.
And then that's what I'm saying, Joe. I mean, I'm saying that I think that when this is all said and done, generally speaking, most areas are going to have a half a foot. Now, if I'm off by like an inch or even 2 inches on either side,
Oh, they will. They're going to be lining up to crucify you for that because you missed an inch on
yeah,
either
yeah,
side.
yeah.
Go on. I'm
And
sorry.
besides that, I mean, you've got some of it tomorrow. Then there's maybe a little bit of compression. Incidentally, how about sleet? Do you think there's going to be very much in the way of sleet mixing in anywhere, or
You know what?
uh,
I don't know. I mean, here's another thing that the Nam brought this big line of sleet last night and during the overnight runs, and then it further south, further south. Now it never gets to me. On the Nam. I snow right through. So I don't know. Are we going to see mixing with sleet? Or are we not going to see mixing with sleet? If we see mixing with sleet, I'm thinking that makes an argument maybe for a stronger run of warm advection. And maybe stronger snow bands on the front end if that's the case. So perhaps if the models are not showing a lot of sleet, it's telling you that the warm advection is suspect later tomorrow into tomorrow evening. I don't. I'm not sure, Joe. I really. Look, I don't think it gets to you. It certainly shouldn't get up to the Hudson Valley. I think it's a question of whether I get into it on Long Island and areas in coastal Jersey, the northern part of the coast. Because if you're in Ocean County South, that you'll probably get into some sleet over there.
I'm hoping that we stay mostly snow. That the last thing that you want to see if you want to clear away snow is to have a glaze of ice on top of the snow. Um, Now, the interesting thing about the NAM is that it's been flirting, that F-Gen band of purple has been flirting with our area for the last 24 hours. Now, in this case, it looks like it keeps it just to our south until about 1 o'clock. And then the very tail end of it kind of flips across the New York area and the lower Hudson Valley during the early to mid afternoon hours tomorrow, and then
Was
lifts away to the north and east.
I'm going to bring the F Gen up now. Was this the F Gen on the Nam?
Yes.
All right.
I'm
So
looking now at the 18. I'm looking at the latest one, the 18Z, and just a couple of days ago, it resembled every bit the big storm of February 1st, where the whole F-Gen band came right up from South Jersey, right on through Long Island and New York, and up through the Hudson Valley. And now, all of a sudden, well, not all of a sudden, but over the last few runs, it's been taking it more to the south, and at the very last minute, kind of the trailing or tail end of
right,
of
yeah,
the
right
zone.
here.
Yeah,
And it
it,
only lasts about it only lasts for about 1 or 2 hours.
right,
Whereas in the big event a couple of weeks ago, it just it just sat there for like 6 hours.
right,
Yeah, so you see it there. Yeah, it comes on through. There's a couple of it sort of splits the omega there. There's like a second area that splits off
yeah.
when it goes through Connecticut and southeastern New England, and then there's another little area of omega at about 8 o'clock that runs over New York City and amplifies a bit when it goes over Long Island. And actually, Joe, even going into Friday morning around midday, there's some omega there in from central New Jersey and over Long Island during the morning hours. Again, that's that second wave.
I had 4 to 8, as you remember yesterday. Then I got to look at the zero Z NAM run last night, which showed that deformation zone, if you want to call it, to the south. And I said, well, if that trends into today, I may have to knock the my accumulation forecast down a little bit. It kept it just to the south, maybe gave us a glancing blow, as you pointed out, during the mid and late afternoon tomorrow. But then I had to give some consideration again to the global models, and I said, I'd love to continue to stay with the hot hand and continue to go with the NAM, but I gotta show some respect to the global model. So that's why I knocked mine down from 4 to 8 to 4 to 6. And again, it's not a big change. And
Right.
again, if you look at it, get a half a foot, I would have I would win either with yesterday's amounts or even today's amounts.
Uh, just want to say really quick, uh, we've got over 400 folks on right now, which is wonderful. Welcome to the Joe and Joe Weather Show. If it's your first time, you can go participate on the chat by subscribing to my YouTube channel with your Gmail account, and you can join in the conversation. We're up to 130 likes, and that's always good. Maybe we can hit another 200 uh, target today. So thank you for those of you who have hit the thumbs up button. Most appreciated. And Albert J is new on the chat board show. Albert, if you got on late, the answer to your question, the confusion about the advisory versus the winter storm warning for New York is that even though the amounts are above what is normally the criteria is measured inside 24 hours, whereas this is pretty much a 36-hour event. So by their standards, it falls below the winter storm warning criteria, hence the winter weather advisory. Although I understand that there's a pool going, Joe, as to what time the Weather Service is going to up it to a winter storm warning anyway. Uh, I say tomorrow morning. If the dam's a little more robust, they're gonna pull the trigger on it. Just maybe just to avoid the confusion. I pulled the sounding from the 3 kilometer NAM because the 3 kilometer NAM, and I took a point right on Long Island, Joe. I think I picked the dot, might have been right over Islip. And this is for 6 o'clock tomorrow evening. It has a ground temperature of 28, and it looks like that there is a warm nose that is just getting to the freezing mark somewhere at around 750 millibars. So I don't know, about 70, 8,000 feet or so, according to the sounding. So that's where the sleep comes from on the on the NAM, on the NAM 3 kilometer.
You know what you call that, Joe?
What's
That's
that?
the cha-cha-cha-cha
Yeah, the Jimmy Durante.
factor. Yeah, the warm
Yes,
nose.
the
Yes.
warm nose. All right, we'll come back to the guidance in a second. Let's just go through what's going on tonight. And I was trying to get Addison Green to come on because Addison works at KHOU in Houston. He was on with us the other day. We tried to get him last night, but he messaged me a little while ago to tell me that he couldn't message me from home because he has no heat and no power.
Oh,
which
God.
is, we've all heard about how widespread the heat, the power outages are in Texas, and they continue. So he also had no power, so he was going to try to get on the live stream tonight. I don't know if he's going to make it, but you know what, Addison, don't strain yourself. You've got enough on your plate as it is. If you come on, that's great, but if you don't, totally understands. Meanwhile, we still have the next round of winter storm warnings that are up across Texas. Let me just freshen this page in case they were updated a little bit. Yeah, they still have winter storm warnings up and some winter weather advisories as well. Not nearly like what we saw from the other day when the whole state was under a winter storm warning for the first time ever, probably. Northern half of Louisiana under winter storm warning. So is much of Arkansas, Tennessee, Mississippi, except the South. Northeast Alabama now. I don't know where Jess Harden's been. He might be getting snow. He asked for it all winter long. Maybe he's finally going to get some. Kentucky under a winter storm warning, except for the north, where you see winter weather advisories on the edge. Just about all of West Virginia, all of Virginia except the southeast, north central and western North Carolina, eastern Tennessee under advisories. Flash flood watches up for much of Georgia, south and eastern North Carolina. Further north, we've got winter storm warnings in Maryland. Delaware under advisories, coastal New Jersey advisories, winter storm warnings for much of the rest of New Jersey, eastern and southeastern South Central Pennsylvania, winter weather advisories continuing through the Hudson Valley, Long Island, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts, and for a couple of counties in southern Vermont and southern New Hampshire. So that kind of rounds out. I am so thankful that this is the last winter storm in this series and that we're going to get a bit of a break in the pattern. Um, because I'm quite honestly, I'm really wiped out after today. This is
Well,
a,
we have another system supposedly for Monday, although that comes with temperatures that'll be at least surface temperatures that'll be close to 40.
right,
So
that doesn't count.
if we do get any kind of frozen precip, it likely will be slushy and wet, and may very well be inclined to be more rain than snow. I wouldn't worry too much about accumulations. If you want to look all the way out,
Yeah,
the
no,
glut
I'm
of
not worried
punishment.
about month. I looked through all the next week. There's nothing. I looked for some, anything that would resemble even the remote possibility, and I'm thinking, no, we may have the all clear signal for a little while. So here's the snow forecast map from the Weather Service. 6 inches plus for Boston, southeastern New England, 6 to 8 on their plots. 6 to 8 going across southern Connecticut, Long Island, the lower Hudson Valley, northern New Jersey. 8 seems to be the top number here, covering south central, southeastern Pennsylvania, down into northern and northwestern Virginia, down the mountains just to the west of I-81. And then, of course, the amounts start to tail off a bit as you go further south, although they are calling for they got some 5-inch prints here up in northwest Alabama. I don't remember where Jess lives. I think this is north of him, so maybe he got into the car and went to drive up there just to see some snow. Some half a foot amounts near Little Rock in central Arkansas. A big problem, Joe, across the South tonight, and also particularly into the great state of Virginia, is going to be ice. There is going to be substantial uh, ice here, and we're talking serious icing. Hopefully, this map will clear so we could see all of the numbers, but they've already popped up a 0.63. Look at this. There are some big numbers here showing up around Lynchburg, east and west of Lynchburg, over half to almost 3/4 of an inch ice accretion possibilities here, down to about Greensboro, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, in that zone. Raleigh-Durham is only at 1300ths of ice accretion. Richmond at over half an inch of ice accretion. So these are serious numbers that we're seeing here in terms of ice storm possibilities. And also down in Mississippi, in southwestern Mississippi, and on the other side in Louisiana, down to just east of Alexandria. We're seeing some big amounts of a third to over a half an inch of ice accretion forecast there. And back through Texas, the amounts are lower, but this is on top of what has already fallen. So it's a little deceptive. And the radar at the moment, there's our little system, Joe. It's chugging along. We've got the F5 weather radar. They are kind enough to let us use it, and we appreciate it. But the precip area that's coming out with this first wave looks impressive enough. Looks like the presentation on the radar is certainly adequate as it moves on up to the northeast. Looks like it's moving right on schedule.
It looks like the final few frames of the loop. It almost looks like a hummingbird with a long beak stretching across Kentucky and West Virginia and into southwestern Pennsylvania. And Joe, I would suspect that long narrow line of snow may actually end up north of New York City. And what is it you always say that when the snow starts north of New York City, it's not a good sign? Or
Well, I mean, if it starts north of New York City, but it starts up in Vermont before it starts in New York City, it's not a good sign. If it starts out north of New York City in a case like this, I wouldn't say it's a bad. Actually, when the snow starts up north of New York City, it's usually from storms that are going to go by to your west. So I would think that in this case, you probably, if you're looking for the NAM to be more robust, you probably want the low to be a little bit further northwest to get some of that heavier precip up further north. So I mean, that's how I would see it
yeah,
on this one. But in general, yeah, I mean, if it starts snowing in Albany, if it starts snowing in Burlington, Vermont, uh, Western Massachusetts, if it starts snowing up there before it starts snowing down here, then usually that's because the low is going by to your west. Some enhancement here on the satellite, Joe. Look at this. You got all these bright white clouds. The higher cloud tops are just kind of expanding and moving on up to the northeast. So that's a nice little disturbance there. That's moving right along. And we also got some severe weather risks tonight I want to bring up. And we've got a slight risk over the Florida Panhandle and in southeast Louisiana, with a small area of marginal risk just to the north of that, general thunderstorms to North Carolina. And then for tomorrow into tomorrow night, we have a slight risk again further east in the Florida Panhandle and going around the Florida coastal bend, and slight risk in southern Georgia, and the marginal risk goes up to about Wilmington in North Carolina. So much like it was on Sunday, Monday, getting the same kind of risk profile for severe weather for this particular system.
and down in the Gulf of Mexico, that's where we have those little waves or ripples that are emanating and moving north and eastward. And this one particular one that will be affecting us, tomorrow, starting off the east coast of Florida, working its way northward, making its way to the vicinity of Cape Hatteras by tomorrow morning, and then again moving ever so slowly. The slow movement is what's going to cause this pattern of snow. I don't know about you, Joe, but I'm already envisioning, going out, let's say later tomorrow with the snow blower, blowing away the first 2 or 3 inches, and then having to get up on Friday morning, looking outside, and it looks like I did absolutely nothing the previous afternoon and evening,
Yeah,
and then it continues,
yeah.
maybe continues through much of the day on Friday, again because of that very slow movement, and it's an anomalously weird type of upper air. I mean, we've been saying this for days now. You've got that big subtropical high offshore, and really not much of a trough at all in the nation's midsection, trying to get itself together, trying to get its act together, and trying to develop some sort of a system to affect us with the snow. But it's not really any kind of a clear cut pattern, and that's why everybody is, so confused.
Well, why don't you why don't you get the European out, and
Okay.
we'll take a look at that. Let's see what the new European has to say uh, with respect to this upcoming event. Reaver, you got on a little late. I actually did pull a sounding earlier in the show off the 3 kilometer NAM, which shows a little bit of a warm nose, but the regular NAM does not have that. So this is for tomorrow evening. It showed a little bit of a warm nose coming in. If I get a chance, we'll try to I'll try to pull up another one, and then I've got you've got the European up on the screen, and then we can come back. We'll show you the upper air with the system for tomorrow. So take it away,
This is
Mr. Rayo.
this again is the European. This is the intermediate European Prague. This is based upon data that was fed in at 18Z or 1 o'clock this afternoon. The view that you're seeing right now on your screen, high pressure predominating here in the Northeast, cold high pressure, not much happening as of 7 o'clock this evening. We'll begin to move forward here. Let's move it to tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. And this is interesting. This particular run already shows more of a northward component of all of this moisture. I can tell you that on the 12Z run, Joe, this was not here. This was probably more suppressed
This is
down in this area.
check just to make sure. Is that your 18-hour forecast or is that the 24?
This is oh, wait a minute. Sorry. Yeah, all right. So this is the
Don't
24.
don't scare me there because I saw that. I was like, oh my God, no, it can't be. If
Well,
that was it, I better go double my amounts.
7 a.m. tomorrow.
Okay.
It does have, and notice if you will the darker shade of gray to the north of the tri-state area. That I guess is that maybe that's an artifact of that long skinny arm of moisture we were just talking about that I said might be heading above or north of New York City. So here it is. It might be snowing north of New York. Well, it's up toward Ulster and Sullivan and Dutchess County tomorrow, and maybe not so much further south, down toward the lower Hudson Valley and into New York. Now, that's 7 o'clock in the morning. This is 1 o'clock. This is 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and it shows the Westchester, part of Rockland, all of New Jersey, New York, and most of Long Island in the green. So at least 0.15, maybe zero point 0.2 inches of liquid precipitation falling.
Right. So that would be between 7 a.m. That's how much it falls between 7 a.m. and 1 p.m.
Correct. And then when we move forward another 6 hours to 7 p.m., oh, look at that. We still have that green. So that's another maybe 2/10 of an inch of moisture. So right
Is
there,
that the darker green over Long Island that I'm seeing?
that's darker. Yeah, there's a darker
It's
shade.
a
Let's
little
see.
darker. So that's
I
what,
can
that's
see.
almost a quarter of an inch.
I'm going 1, 2, 3. Actually, Joe, it's like four. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's like a third of an inch of liquid precipitation.
So the European gives basically about a half an inch of liquid during the day tomorrow,
Right,
roughly.
but take note of the fact of where Long Island is with all of this. 540 is up here. 546 is just to the south of Long Island. So this may be kind of a mixed bag of snow, sleet, and ice.
Or it could be, stay right on the border of the snow and ice. The snow sleet line will be on the edge of it, and somebody that's just north of that line gets into one of those really heavy bands for a couple of hours.
Right. And then 6 more hours, 1 a.m. Oh, look at this. It's all but gone. Now we have just some leftover precipitation between 7 o'clock tomorrow evening and 1 a.m. in the morning. Now, normally you see something like this and you say to yourself, well, it looks like it's going to be over with by daybreak on Friday. But take a look at what happens. 7 a.m., we have a darker shade of green of gray, which means that we are into maybe another round of steadier precipitation, light,
About a tenth of an inch worth, it looks like.
but still steady. And when we get to 1 o'clock on Friday afternoon, light, but still maybe a bit on the steady side. And finally, it looks like it's releasing its hold on us, the last of it, 7 p.m. on Friday. And in fact, once we get into the after midnight hours of Friday into Saturday morning, we're out pretty much in the clear. And it looks like we're going to be in the clear right on through most, if not all, of this upcoming weekend.
All along with this, the European has been somewhat subdued with with this. It's been like that, I think, from the get go. So at least from that standpoint, it's been pretty consistent. You mentioned the upper air about this trough, and I brought up I've got the NAM model here with the upper air. I could have pulled the GFS or the Canadian. It's probably going to be about the same. There'll be some subtle differences, but the NAM again. this is actually, just let me back this up. So this is for tomorrow afternoon. So the upper trough here is still, there's a short wave here, there's one here, and there's one down here. We're dealing with the system up in this range, and there's an upper high that it's running into. So anytime you have something that runs into a ridge, you call into question how much are you really going to have there? Now the ridge is going to get crashed, going to get dented by that, and now here comes the trough. This is why we're getting backside stuff later Thursday night and Friday, because on Friday that upper trough actually tries to phase a little bit here, and there's a pretty decent jet streak by Friday evening approaching the coast, and then the trough just moves along pretty much from west to east. Uh, I'm thinking, Joe, if the lead system probably robs some energy from, with this upper trough, it's going to have less to work with as it moves eastward, which is why, the precip that it's generating for Friday is nothing really exciting, nothing really to write home about. And then, of
Right.
course, once that goes by, we go into the weekend, which is shaping up to be a cold, dry weekend.
Can't wait for, I can hardly wait for that. Unfortunately, may also be, may spend part of my Saturday just getting rid of the last of the snow and kind of trimming and edging, so to speak. Normally, I trim and edge in the summertime with a lawnmower and a clipper, but I'm going to be trimming and edging with the snow blower probably and with the snow shovel in the aftermath of all of this. Because don't forget, this is all on top of what we've seen from earlier on in the month. And it just doesn't want to seem to end, Joe.
No, it really doesn't. And this is our fourth storm in less than 3 weeks. So we've been right. Yeah, one. No, I'm sorry. One, two, three, four. This is our fifth storm that we've had to deal with in in,
Pretty
in,
good.
in 17 days.
We've been we've been averaging,
That's a very active.
we're averaging like one every 3 days or thereabouts.
Right.
And the other thing is, and I mentioned this before the season began, is that there's an interesting correlation at Central Park. 7.7 inches or more in the month of December. 9 other times that we've had that happen, 9 out of 9, the amount of snow that has fallen in Central Park has been in excess of 40 inches. We still have a good deal of winter left, and we're only about 7 inches away from that 40-inch mark for Central Park. So it looks like we're going to make it 10 out of 10 in terms of 40 plus inches
Well,
coming after.
this might put it over the top.
This might very well do that. If now don't blame me if Central Park comes in with like 6.2 inches and we fall just a few tenths of an inch shy of 40, but we'll see how this all works out. And of course, you actually have people out there at the Central Park Conservatory.
Conservatory.
They going out there and measuring, doing the proper measurements instead of just going out on Central Park West and sticking a ruler on the top of car tops.
Yes. All right, WPC. This is the probability of 4. I went to 4 on the map. I could switch it to 2, and I might. But for 4, you're seeing a 80% probability in a small area, not too far away from Little Rock, Arkansas. And also, we're seeing a rather high probability. WPC has an 80% probability of at least 4. Western Long Island, New York City, the northern half of New Jersey, pretty much north of, I would say, north of the 78 or north and west of the Turnpike, the Hudson Valley, pretty far up the Hudson Valley for at least 4, Western Connecticut, and also in an area down in south central Pennsylvania where we have an 80 to 90%, and even in a small area of 95% there on the West Virginia side of the Virginia border. Also, an 80% chance in and west of Boston and in parts of southeastern Massachusetts. And just for laughs, I'll put up an 8. And yeah, and in the mountains of eastern West Virginia showing a chance of that the lighter blue is a 50% chance of at least 8. And they have the 10 to 20% chance of at least 8, Joe, in that area where they had the 40%. I'm sorry, the high probability of at least 4. They have a 10 to 20% chance of at least 8, and even a small area of 20 to 30% that goes right over your house. I just want you to know that. It goes right over your house.
That's for 8 inches of snow.
Yes. And by the way, if
Oh,
you look in South Central PA, I don't know what mountain that is, but there's this little tiny blue spot there that's higher than everybody else, if you notice. So they got a little elevation peak noted here on the probability for at least 8. And on, I'll just switch to 2 because this is pretty solid here. They've got everybody. They got a lockup of at least 2 for just about everybody in the Northeast and down into Pennsylvania, most of New Jersey, down into Northern Virginia. Joe, Washington and Baltimore have underperformed in every one of these storms this winter, and I wonder whether they're going to do it again, where they wind up underperforming because they are forecasting for those areas 4 or 5 or 6 inches. And in each one of these storms that we've had this year, they've always come out on the short end of the stick. And I'm thinking that they might again. I don't know. It's just a feeling I've got with that. And also, just want to take a look here again with the freezing rain issue in Virginia, such a big deal. I've got a quarter of an inch marked up here on the map, the probability of at least a quarter of an inch. And you can see that large area, that is a 80, and even a few pockets where the percentage is between 90 and 95. And for a half an inch, we've got a really large area here of a 50% chance from northern North Carolina going northeast to just south and west of Washington, D.C. So we're going to be hoping that that doesn't verify because we don't like freezing rain. And then down in northern northwest Louisiana into Mississippi, also here too, a very large, and into eastern Texas, very large area of at least half a 50% probability of at least half an inch of ice accretion from this freezing rain event. So that's the one thing I always say with freezing rain. That's the one forecast you don't want to get right. I mean, if freezing rain happens and you're forecasting it, you really want that forecast to bust because freezing rain is the worst, and it puts people's lives in danger. And we saw that in Texas back last week with that 100 some odd vehicle pileup with those poor people that were killed. So, freezing rain is never a good thing. Never a good thing.
Bill Kennedy is asking about what are the prospects for, excuse me, what are the prospects for maybe thunder snow? Um, Originally, when we had that big storm on February the 1st, I said that we would probably have convection because of that dynamic band of omega, that FGen zone, and we never did. And what I think, Joe, not even low top convection. I think when we see the omega in a circular pattern associated with a developing storm, then we would see the prospects of thunder snow. But when we have this band, as we've seen so many times this month already, I think it's not going to happen. We may very well get mesoscale banding of locally, heavy snow in places, but I don't think that that is the catalyst to produce convection or thunderstorm activity. You really need what in essence looks like the inside of a wristwatch when you wind it up too tightly, a real stem winder, a circular type of pattern, not that long strip or band, so to speak. So I don't think we'll see any lightning or thunder tomorrow if we get involved with that area that the NAM is suggesting. Although even the NAM again is pushing most of that to the south, and just the trailing or tail end of it may flick across parts of the tri-state area during the afternoon hours tomorrow, and that may bump the snow intensities up and make all the snow lovers really excited for a brief moment in time.
Zim is with us tonight, and she asks if there's any chance DC could outperform. And I was just saying, 'cause you may have jumped on late. I just said this not too long ago. Washington, D.C. and Baltimore have basically underperformed pretty much every snow event this year, and I'm just wondering whether this is going to play out the same way. Uh, maybe not, but it's just a feeling I have, and also uh, the fact that it's underperformed every time. The trend is your friend, as I like to say, and you wonder whether they're going to get into some freezing rain. I have the new H triple R, Joe. This is the Zero Z H triple R, just in, hot off the presses. It's only out 19 hours, but it gets us at least into the start of the day, this system tomorrow. And we can watch this now. This is at 4 a.m. There's that little stripe of snow that goes up across northeastern Pennsylvania to north of 84 and there and into western Mass. But it looks like it goes into that high and just kind of dries up. And then the main area, of course, comes in. Now, this is at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Snow on Long Island to just north of New York City, covering New Jersey, eastern PA. You see some of the darker blue bands there in southeast PA down into Maryland and northern Virginia. But there's a lot of freezing rain here in north central North Carolina, on up into in through Virginia. Looks like it would have reached sleet and/or freezing rain would have reached the Washington D.C. area, but not Baltimore. You're kind of on the edge here with that. And here we go, Joe, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Now this is really odd. You've got this cold high. I mean, this is really cold air that is over us. Take Joe, if is it my eyes, but there's actually a little bit of green. There's no way it's going to start as rain on the northern edge of this. But I mean, come on, what is that? There's there's no that why do my, the GFS does that all the time. It's been doing that for the last year plus, where it's got yesterday it had 528 thicknesses in central Pennsylvania where there are mountains, and it had rain there. I mean, come, you got to be kidding me. Fix the error. So here we are. We go up. This is at now, if that's what the radar looks like at 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, that actually looks fairly robust. I'll get a little tighter. Hang on a second. I'm curious because the H triple R has been much like the global models, where it's just been sort of, it gets up to New York City and then the area just kind of does a big. Um, so maybe this is a little bit different today, but we'll have to wait for a few more frames to come up. But I've got some of the darker blue snow over me and back over to New York City, and you see some of these heavier bands out offshore. Now it's sleet in Atlantic City, so I'm going to pull up the sounding for Atlantic City, and if you take a look here, folks, when you see the sounding, you're going to know. Just follow the red line is the actual temperature, and right here, this is going your height going up is measured in millibars. So you've got right about there. Well, I was trying to draw the 850 line, but that would be about, say, 3,000 feet, 4,000 feet, and just above that, there's a little warm nose where the temperature goes above freezing. And here's your freezing line, is that dashed line as you go up in height. So this is why it changes over to sleet or freezing rain, because you do have a bit of a warm layer there in southern New Jersey. But if we go up to, say, let's go to Joe's, near Joe's location, and we look at the sounding there, you'll notice that the dash, here's the zero. You see zero there. You follow that dash line that goes up to the right. That's your freezing line, and the temperature in red, it never crosses that freezing line. So this is all snow, because everything here is below freezing at all levels of the atmosphere.
It
So
comes close
it
like
comes
around
close.
about 5,000 to 6,000 feet, but that close doesn't get you the bagel this time.
No, well, you want to see that, though. You want to see that push toward the zero line, but you don't want it to cross over the zero line, because once you cross it, then you wind up with sleet or with freezing rain. 4 more hours have come in, Joe. They just right now have come in, and so we'll go to uh, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. There's your sleet line. Still snowing much of northern New Jersey, Long Island, southern New England, the lower and middle Hudson Valley. 5 o'clock, some sleet touching the South Shore. 6 o'clock, little sleet getting in there and in and around New York City and in Brooklyn. And that's as far as it goes. But one thing, Joe, look, at this point, that's that first advection's going out. So,
Right.
here it comes, and there it goes. And now, after that, what happens to all of this stuff that's back here, as part of that, uh, the upper trough and the second wave, and actually the HRRR picks up. There's your first wave. Here's your second wave. So uh, we don't go out far enough. We're only out 23 hours at this point, but at least we get a clue as to what happened. And just for laughs, I mean, I'll bring up the snowfall forecast map. Um,
The HRRR
yeah,
snowfall.
I mean, it's got like 3 to 4 inches here. There's some twos to the north, some three, and you still have a couple hours to go, for sure. But there's a 3 here, there's a 4, there's a 4 back through central New Jersey. I think a better way to look at this, rather than look at the snow map, let's just look at accumulated precip. And it's 3 to 4 tenths. The dark green is 4 to 5 tenths. So at least through 7 o'clock I'm sorry, through 6 o'clock tomorrow evening, somewhere between 3 tenths and say half an inch, somewhere in there for much of the area, for areas from New York City south. And then, of course, you get into the bigger amounts when you get down in southern Pennsylvania and Maryland, northern and northwestern Virginia. You can see 3/4 of an inch to an inch of liquid being generated here by the models. They're getting, they're solidly tapping this system, whereas, we're kind of seeing how much of it's going to be left as it moves on up to the northeast.
Yeah, these conversions from liquid precipitation to projections of snow amounts for each of the models, it's a different set of algorithms, I guess, for all of them, which is why you end up with a wide variation.
Yes.
And because of that, you really, I mean, it's fun to look at, and you might be able to get a rough idea of what may happen in your area, but please don't take them.
No, honestly, that's why I rather look at the precip map and just do the math in my mind. If
Yeah,
I know I'm going to get 4 tenths, that's 4 inches. If you want to use it, if you know your ratio is going to be 12 to 1 or 15 to 1, then you could up your amount to 5 or 6 if you want. That's really the best way to figure it out. Also, just speaking along those lines, uh, the snow maps on pivotal weather, for example, use a different algorithm. So their numbers don't match what's on
what's on top of
tropical tidbits,
the
which don't
yeah.
necessarily match what's on some of the other model weather products from other companies that are out there. So,
I caught Lonnie Quinn tonight, and he was showing the various snow amounts based on various models. He showed the GFS, Joe, and the GFS had, I think, for Newburgh, like 10.6 inches. And I was saying to myself, where is that coming up? Where is he coming up
all
with
right, well,
that?
let me see if I can. Let me
How
see
did
if.
the GFS come up with 10.6 inches of snow?
Well, actually, I'll tell you where he got it from, and I'll bring it up right now because I actually happen to have that. Just by some fortune, Joe, I actually have that map up in the up here. I'm not
Really?
kidding. Seriously, I had. It was one of the last things I looked at. It is, by the way, the it's the hexagonal GFS.
The hexagonal
Yes, that
or
has
the
that
parallel?
that has that 10.9 over Newburgh.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there you
it
go.
did some weird things here. And, a lot of this comes on the back side too. But the other thing I did notice, by the way, on the pivotal weather maps, and this is at least makes them easier to take in terms of the snowfall maps. Some of those snowfall maps count sleet as snow. I discovered from, unless somebody will correct me, but I checked a number of times. Um, and what I did was I just ran a snow map over past a time frame where there was sleet, and the number didn't go up. So the pivotal maps, from what I see, don't include sleet. So it's a cleaner number when if you look at these maps a during an event where you get a change over to sleet and freezing rain and then to rain. The numbers here solely reflect snow. So that's where he got it from. It's the parallel GFS, which my understanding is it's supposed to become operational next month.
No, next month.
That's what I heard.
Can they wait until after the winter is over before they before they
Well,
do this?
I've been kind of uh, um, using it more regularly now because I
Uh-huh.
figure they're going to make the switch soon, pretty soon. Um, but and getting used to it to see what its quirks are. It's actually I think it's actually performed fairly well for the most part. It's had its own hiccups. All the models have hiccups, but it's I think it's done better than the current operational GFS. Lonnie Quinn Reaver was not. I don't think he was on As the World Turns. I think
I
he
think he
was.
was.
Was he? I thought he was on All My Children.
He was actually on All My Children as a guest, as a semi-regular, but
Right.
he also played himself, Lonnie Quinn, the weatherman, on As the World
Oh, then
Turns.
that's probably some CBS thing. Then okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this was
All right.
like a cameo appearance.
Yeah.
Like you're standing around, all of a sudden there's a knock on the door, and like, oh, look who it is! It's Lonnie Quinn from Channel Two.
When you die in a soap opera and then you come back like 6 months later, you die. You die because you want to do a Broadway show, and then you come back from your Broadway show and suddenly you're undead. You know.
Yes, yes,
Why don't we? You know what's been coming in early, Joe, these days?
the Nam.
No, not
Not
the
that high,
Nam. Even better than the Nam, Joe. Even better than the Nam.
the Plumes,
Le Plume
the
de la
Plumes.
Brioski. Let's see. Do we have the 21Z plumes yet? No, they're not. They usually come in around 8:45. But I've noticed the plumes have been popping up like at 30 minutes past the 2:30, 8:30, 2:30 a.m., 2:30, 8:30 a.m., 2:30 p.m., 8:30 p.m. But the 15Z plumes, I'm not going to bring those up because we're going to get the new ones in a little while. But the 15Z plumes actually gave mostly 6, 7 inch totals, just about to most places. Um, I think it gave Poughkeepsie maybe 5 or 6. It gave White Plains, I believe, about 7 or just 7.5, something like that. And I've been following those along. They've been pretty consistent. They haven't really changed very much.
We're getting a request. I'm not sure if it was Bill Kennedy or somebody else requesting a view of the icon model. Is it worth putting up the
Sure.
icon?
Well, I didn't look at it today, but if our studio audience wants the icon model, we'll do the icon model. So just give me a moment here. Those are les plumes. Okay, so let's go to the icon. Now the problem with the icon, folks, is on the maps, it doesn't show sleet and it doesn't show freezing rain. It just shows either snow or rain. So if there's sleet going on, the model's going to show it as rain. If it's freezing rain, the model's going to show it as rain. Now in terms of precip, the icon gave, let's see, during the day tomorrow between 3 and 4 tenths, and then a total precip about between half and 3 quarters. So actually, the icon gives half on the front end, half on the back end, and you still wind up getting to the same place. And as
Well,
far
that
as
makes sense. That makes sense, Ralph. From the front, she looks like you from the back.
back, yes, exactly. And on the actual map, here comes your advection. Some decent bands here. I guarantee you what's showing up is rain in southwest Jersey, northern Delaware, back down into Maryland and into Virginia. That's got to be freezing rain or sleet. And then that goes out. And then you piddle around. And then it starts to blow up this precip on Friday from the second wave. And then that goes out. And this is actually Friday afternoon. Friday evening, it's still snowing here right along the coast. And then that moves away to the east. And then it turns very cold and it turns very dry for the weekend. And since I've got this map up on the screen, let me just go back to the GFS. We could take a look at the long range because we've been advertising a breakdown of this pattern. And we're going to get the breakdown of this pattern. Uh, and it's going to carry us through probably all of next week. And let me just switch that along. This is about as far away from blocking as we've been since the last week of November. The upper high is gone. You've got pretty much an active west to east flow with the northern jet in control. So that just probably means cold fronts coming through every 3 or 4 days. Nothing really of consequence in the southern stream. Something a little more interesting maybe toward the end here, Joe. You got a 50-50 low with a trough dropping down. Maybe something evolves out of that. That's around March 1st. And you also have, by the way, at this point, you've got strong ridging building up in the Atlantic across Greenland. So I still I'm in the camp that we're going to see this blocking pattern reappear at least once during the month of March. Uh, the models keep showing signs of it from run to run. Whether it winds up holding or not on any particular run doesn't hasn't really done that, but it does show signs of wanting to do that in the long range. And since the long range is so darn volatile, we could come in tomorrow and it could have blocking all over the place. But we'll see.
That's a pretty good looking fire hose, by the way, from the Pacific.
Hang on, I just switched off of that. Yeah, I mean it's a pretty much straight line. We are more in that northern part of the jet stream than we are in the Pacific part of it. But
Yeah.
there's no these short waves that are coming through in this pattern. The vortex is sitting up north of Alaska at this point. I mean, there's not a whole lot to them other than cold fronts. So you don't really get too much here. Everything probably rolls along near the Canadian border. What did I wanted to do? I wanted to do something else. Oh, I gave the plumes a recheck here just to see if any of them are in. Let me just really quick. Sometimes a few of them sneak in early. They cleared the flat line for islip. They must be getting ready. Let's try Capixi. No for Philadelphia. Philadelphia is still flatlining there. So is New York. But Block Island is not. But there's no data in yet. So it looks like they're going to come in maybe a little bit late. So we'll come back here. So I guess that pretty much wraps it up.
So now, what are we going to do? Are we going to come on during the snow tomorrow, or are we going to just simply wait until 7:30 tomorrow night?
You know what? Honestly, I would rather come on in the middle of the day because by the time we get to tomorrow evening, I'm going to be dead tired and not really worth very much. So, so why don't we do it? Why don't we plan maybe that? Yeah, okay, we just got back. So yeah, I'm getting some interference. Something's going on with the cable with the cable folks. So let's wrap it up and say goodbye. So let me do a little bit of business here as the Joe and Joe Weather Show, as it is every night, brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware of West Babylon. Long Island and the tri-state area's largest supplier of rock salt, which they still have plenty of in spite of the shortage in the Northeast. So if you need it, go to Omni True Value Hardware. They'll be open tomorrow until noon, and they will be opening early Friday morning at 3 a.m. 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, 631-756-1125. For the best prices in town, omnitruevalue.com is the website. And our other sponsor is Wholesale Holiday Lighting by Giannini at 162 Ocean Avenue in Lindenhurst, 631-957-5106 for your complete holiday light. They are your complete holiday lighting specialists, and they will meet all your home decorating needs. Wholesale Holiday Lighting by Giannini. So, on what floor, Joe, is the sale on at Macy's? Because I could swear I just heard the Macy's announcement.
She was talking about the circle of death.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, we knew about the circle of death. Yeah, it did show up. So we're saying goodbye because there's some signal issues showing up here. So 1 o'clock
Carrie
tomorrow.
Weaver, 1 o'clock. Carrie Weaver said, "You guys were buffering when you announced when you would be back on tomorrow."
Okay, so now we're not buffering. So 1 o'clock, 1 p.m. I'm putting it on the chat board. 1 p.m. tomorrow, Thursday. Okay, where there will be wailing and gnashing of teeth, perhaps. We'll see.
We'll see.
All right. Okay. Good night, everybody. Thanks for being here. Oh, and we do have a super chat hit. I want to just acknowledge the super chat hit was from David Fuller. who's working hard cleaning up a water main break. Thanks, David, for hitting super chat. Most appreciated. And thank you for the 250 likes tonight, Joe. And a nice crowd, over 400 at one point. So thanks, everybody, for being here, and we appreciate your support. Good
We'll
night,
see you at
everybody.
1 o'clock tomorrow.